Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady, has passed away. And she was apparently very polarizing because we have just a number of people going crazy about how amazing she is and what an inspiration she has been throughout the world. And then we have a few people who have vilified her for her anti-progressive policies. So let's start with the people who loved her.
Reagan had been a big Hollywood star for a long time. He met a lot of famous people, but with Thatcher, she was in a special category.
Well, she was a towering figure, a woman of tremendous strength of conviction, great courage.
Yes, sometimes the things that she said were tough, but I think when you look back, she was overwhelmingly right in her judgment.
Oh, she's incredibly brilliant and witty and fast on her feet.
The force of her personality was really something to behold. And
her sense of candor, she could be so disarming with those one-liners.
And then she said something a little bit untoward about our French allies. And she looked at me and waved her finger at me. Don't write that down, young man.
I think this country has just lost its greatest prime minister since Winston Churchill.
The British people have lost a great inspiration. They have lost somebody who should be an example to anybody in political life today.
And I think it's not a stretch to say that she not only changed the arc of history in the UK, she changed the arc of history in the world.
Margaret Thatcher was a revolutionary and she was a liberator.
We're debating whether or not to go to the United Nations to get a UN Security Council resolution authorizing the use of force. But I never will forget her sitting there in the wing chair in the Oval after this debate went on for about an hour and a half or maybe an hour or so. And finally she just looked at President Bush. She said, "Oh, George," she said, "let's just go do it."
A rejection of anything that smacked of what she considered a socialism or what we call liberalism in America. Well, if you deal with women that define themselves as part of a women's movement, they don't like Margaret Thatcher.
I think she was one of the remarkable prime ministers in British history.
But if you're looking at women that succeed by simply the quality of their work, their leadership, she's one of the great women leaders of the 20th century.
Two distinct groups there. The women who identify with other women and the women who succeed. Two separate groups. There's no overlap there, according to him. Anyway.
That's hilarious. Nice. Some people call her the greatest prime minister since Winston Churchill. Some people call her an uncaring warmonger. I will go with the latter. I will go with the latter. And I think her legacy is one of shit. People talk about it because, right? Don't you think it's the same thing they do with Reagan, right? They build him up to be this thing that he wasn't. Ronald Reagan raised taxes, the biggest tax increase in the history of our country. He did all that stuff, and people just pretend that he didn't do that stuff. Well, Margaret Thatcher did the same thing. When she got out of office, taxes were higher than when she came into office. Plus, she raised the value-added tax, which they have over there. So I think this is all like the things she did was bad. She crushed unions. She hurt the poor people, women, and she was a warmonger. They're giggling on that tape. Let's just go and crush these people in the Falkland Islands. Let's go kill 900 people is what they did for nothing.
Yeah, I think someday I think we'll have those same little jokes about like, oh, George W. Bush, he wasn't going to wait for like the UN and allies. Just go in there, bomb them.
Let's go kill some people.
Yeah.
Funny.
But I think that what we're seeing in the media and what you saw in those video clips is a combination of people who simply shared her ideology, and so they're going to speak favorably about her because she was, very strong, and like people on the right, conservatives tend to idolize people more so than liberals. I think it's just a psychological characteristic. And then you also have the people who might not agree with her and might, if you were actually ask about her particular policies, they might disagree with her, but they simply feel like, well, we're on mainstream media, we can't say anything negative about her. It's one of the differences between them and us, of course. So I think we're going to be a little bit more critical. And you started that off well.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope we're going to be critical of her because she was not a good leader. I mean, as far as her legacy, the results of her policies and the things she did were bad. She privatized London, you know what I mean? She crushed the unions, and she had a legacy of boom and bust with the housing market in England. So tell me some more bad stuff about her, Steve.
Well, she did a lot of things that I suppose conservatives today would be happy with, which is basically union busting. And when she was education secretary in England, she was the one who made a decision to stop giving away free milk to 7 and 11-year-old kids in school.
Screw
so
them.
after that, her nickname became Margaret Thatcher Milk Snatcher.
Watch your mouth. It's a family
Yeah.
show.
Right. And okay, so let's talk about her legacy a little bit. So what did she do? One of the things that she did was she under her leadership, they shut down a whole bunch of steel mills in England, and they effectively destroyed the steel industry. Now, one can argue that it was good, or one can argue that it was bad. One of the ways that the steel industry was being propped up was through public dollars. So the government supported these companies, and through that support, they were able to maintain their ability to pay their workers. So I guess on the one hand, it was a way to give people jobs. On the other hand, it was a waste of taxpayer dollars. So she cut them and she destroyed it. And with the combination of high unemployment, these cuts in subsidies to various industries that weren't performing well, she effectively destroyed the unions.
I mean, her real legacy is not good. You know, all the utilities privatized in London. She deregulated the city. Basically, she cut welfare. She hurt the working class. I mean,
Yeah.
She did.
didn't- So here's some of the things that she was for when she was prime minister, and said so afterwards. Socialized medicine. In the book she wrote after she was prime minister, the quote was. I believe that the NHS, that's their National Healthcare Service, was a service which we could all be proud of. So she is for socialized medicine. She recognized climate change. Here's another quote. She said, "The dangers of global warming is as yet unseen, but real enough to make changes and sacrifices so that we do not live at the expense of future generations." She would be a heretic in today's Republican Party. Conservatives would think you're for social. I mean, those are the two things they're pushing back against the hardest: is Obamacare, universal health care, and climate change.
She also passed some gun control regulations.
And she
as well.
passed. There you go. So again, they're not. The modern day conservative is so far to the right that they make Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan look liberal. But so what they have to do is rewrite history to make them not be liberal.